A woman has pleaded guilty to killing a baby boy who was found dead in Woodland almost 30 years ago.
But we're involved in an investigation regarding a baby who was found deceased in Woodlands on the outskirts of Warrington in 1998. So therefore, I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder of that child and also for concealing the birth of that child.
For 25 years, Joanne Sharkey carried a dark secret, one that, when finally revealed, sent shockwaves through her family, friends, and the entire community. Imagine living day after day, knowing that a horrifying truth from your past could surface at any moment. But what led to this secret? And why did she finally confess after so long? Joanne Sharkey was a seemingly ordinary woman from Liverpool, England. She was a wife, a mother, and a trusted figure within her social circles. But in 1998, she did something unthinkable. She gave birth to a baby boy in secret and ended his life before disposing of his body in a nearby woodland. For over 2 decades, the crime remained undiscovered, while Joanne continued her life as though nothing had happened. That is, until 2023, when she finally admitted to the crime, leading to a shocking legal case that gripped the nation. This story is more than just a criminal case. It's a chilling reminder of the hidden struggles people face, the impact of psychological distress, and the devastating consequences of unresolved trauma. In this video, we'll explore every aspect of this haunting case, from the events leading up to the crime to the investigation, legal proceedings, and the conversations it sparked about mental health and motherhood. What drove Joanne Sharkey to commit such an act? And why did she keep it buried for so long? Let's dive into the full story. Joanne Sharkey lived a seemingly normal life in Liverpool, England. She was a wife and mother, balancing the responsibilities of family life while maintaining an outward appearance of stability. To those who knew her, Joanne was just another woman navigating the everyday challenges of adulthood. However, beneath the surface, she carried a secret so dark that it would remain hidden for over 2 decades. In 1998, when the crime occurred, Joanne was a young woman facing personal struggles that she never shared with those around her. Details about her relationships at the time, particularly whether she had a partner or support system, remain unclear. However, what is known is that she gave birth in complete secrecy, suggesting she was either deeply afraid or felt isolated in her circumstances. As years passed, Joanne moved forward with her life, eventually marrying and raising a family. She built a new existence for herself, one that seemed to erase any trace of the past. Her ability to conceal such a terrible act for so long raises serious questions about her state of mind, her emotional burdens, and the strength of the facade she presented to the world. To her family and friends, Joanne Sharkey was an ordinary woman, trusted and respected within her social circles. Those who knew her never suspected the kind of secret she had buried, both figuratively and literally. She wasn't someone who stood out for any troubling behavior, and there were no immediate signs that she was capable of committing such a crime. For 25 years, she lived among people who had no idea about the dark chapter in her past. She attended gatherings, engaged in friendships, and played the role of a devoted wife and mother. It wasn't until she finally confessed in 2023 that her family and the wider community were forced to reevaluate everything they thought they knew about her. The revelation shattered perceptions and left many questioning how someone could live with such a burden for so long without showing any cracks in their carefully constructed image. Joanne Sharkey's story is one of secrecy, survival, and deception. But what led her to commit such an unthinkable act in the first place? And why did she stay silent for so many years? The answers begin with the tragic crime itself, an event that would remain hidden in the shadows until she finally decided to confess. Joanne Sharkey's ability to hide her pregnancy for the entire term is a chilling testament to how deeply she kept her secret. At the time, she was living with her husband, but their work schedules were opposite. He worked nights while she worked during the day. This unusual routine gave her an unexpected advantage, allowing her to avoid close scrutiny during critical hours. By strategically wearing loose-fitting clothing and avoiding physical intimacy that might have revealed her growing belly, Joanne successfully kept her condition hidden. She also managed to suppress any signs of morning sickness or pregnancy-related fatigue when in the company of others. It's possible that she avoided social gatherings or made excuses to further limit interactions, ensuring no one got too close. Additionally, she never sought medical attention for prenatal care. No doctor visits, no checkups, and no records of the pregnancy meant there was no outside confirmation of what she was experiencing. Whether out of fear, denial, or shame, she remained completely alone in her condition, leaving no paper trail and keeping even those closest to her in the dark. Friends, family, and even her husband were completely unaware, until decades later, of the life she had carried and the crime that followed. The decision to conceal a pregnancy so thoroughly suggests deep psychological distress. Joanne may have been overwhelmed with fear of judgment, fear of rejection, or fear of an uncertain future. Women who hide pregnancies often do so due to immense emotional pressure, sometimes stemming from shame, anxiety, or even an unstable domestic situation. Postnatal depression, or even prenatal depression, could have played a role in her actions. If Joanne was struggling with undiagnosed mental health issues, she might have been incapable of seeking help or making rational choices. The pressure of an unexpected pregnancy, coupled with an absence of emotional support, might have led her to detach from the reality of her situation. Another possibility is that she dissociated from the pregnancy altogether, mentally blocking out the enormity of what was happening. This psychological coping mechanism, where a person disconnects from distressing events, can lead to dangerous outcomes, especially if there is no external intervention. Regardless of the exact psychological factors at play, Joanne's hidden pregnancy set the stage for an even more tragic and irreversible decision, the moment she took her newborn's life, a secret she would carry for 25 years. In 1998, Joanne Sharkey's concealed pregnancy came to a devastating climax when she gave birth alone in the bathroom of her home. With no medical assistance and no one aware of what was happening, she delivered the baby in complete secrecy. What should have been a moment of new life quickly turned into an irreversible tragedy. Overcome by panic, fear, or a desperate need to erase the situation, Joanne made a horrifying decision. Rather than seeking help or allowing the baby to live, she suffocated the newborn. The precise details of her mindset at that moment remain unknown, but the act itself was deliberate. Whether she saw no way out, feared judgment, or simply could not emotionally handle the reality of motherhood, she chose to end the baby's life before anyone even knew he existed. After carrying the baby in her womb for 9 months, she now had to dispose of his tiny body. Instead of burying him nearby or keeping him hidden within her home, she took the remains to a secluded area of woodland and left him there. There was no record of his birth, no hospital documentation, and, at the time, no one to suspect Joanne had ever been pregnant. With the crime committed, she returned to her life as though nothing had happened, keeping the dark secret locked away for more than 2 decades.
Footage released by Cheshire Police shows the scene close to where baby Callum was found. He was named Callum after the Callans district of Warrington, in which his body was discovered. Joanne Sharkey admitted the manslaughter of the child by reason of diminished responsibility. Baby Callum was found dead close to Gulliver's World in Cheshire in March 1998. A dog walker discovered him a few hours old, wrapped in a plastic bag, on March 14th of that year. Cheshire Police say the baby was estimated to have been born at full term within a few days of his discovery. But his identity and that of his parents remained a mystery for years. Cheshire Police's cold case team periodically searched the National Police DNA database in hope of finding a match. The investigation was triggered in January 2022 when a DNA link between the baby and somebody who was related to him was found. Sharkey and the baby's father were arrested in July 2023 on suspicion of murder. The baby's father had no further action taken, as the investigation found he was unaware of the pregnancy and the birth or death of the baby. Police determined that Sharkey concealed her pregnancy, gave birth at home, and then caused the death of the baby in the following hours. She was charged on April 15, 2024, with murder and endeavouring to conceal the birth of a child. At Liverpool Crown Court on March 6th, Sharkey, 55, of Denham Close, Liverpool, entered a guilty plea to manslaughter, which has been accepted by the prosecution based on psychiatric evidence. Sharkey also pleaded guilty to endeavouring to conceal the birth of a child. She will be sentenced on March 21st. Follow for more.
The community was shaken by the tragic and mysterious finding, an innocent baby left to decay without a name, family, or known story. The authorities launched an investigation, but with no immediate leads, the case remained unsolved. Despite not knowing the mother's identity, the local community took it upon themselves to give the child dignity in death. They named him Baby Callum and arranged for a proper burial, ensuring he was not forgotten. The case haunted both investigators and residents, as speculation about the circumstances of his death grew. For 25 years, Joanne carried on with her life, suppressing the truth while an entire town unknowingly mourned the child she had taken from the world. It was only decades later that the shocking confession would finally surface, unraveling the heartbreaking mystery of Baby Callum. For 25 years, Joanne Sharkey carried the weight of an unthinkable secret. Despite committing an unspeakable act in 1998, she managed to continue her life as if nothing had happened. She maintained her daily routines, interacted with friends and family, and went about her work without ever hinting at the dark truth she had buried, both figuratively and literally. But living with such a secret is never without its consequences. Every passing year must have been a silent battle, with thoughts of what she had done lurking in the shadows of her mind. Did she feel guilt? Did she ever consider confessing earlier? Or was she able to suppress the memory so deeply that it only resurfaced when confronted? What's even more unsettling is how she managed to deceive those closest to her. Joanne's husband, who worked opposite hours, never suspected a thing. Friends and neighbors saw her as just another ordinary woman in Liverpool, never realizing that beneath her composed exterior lay the memory of a hidden pregnancy and a lost child. The fact that no one noticed, or if they did, never voiced their suspicions, allowed her secret to remain buried for over 2 decades. Perhaps the most chilling aspect of this case is how Joanne lived her life as a mother while keeping the dark past hidden. She was already raising a son, her firstborn, while knowing she had taken the life of another. How did she reconcile these two realities? Did she look at her living child and wonder about the one she had discarded? Her marriage also remained intact throughout the years, at least on the surface. Her husband, unaware of the horrifying truth, spent decades with a woman who had concealed something so grave. The deception within their relationship must have been unfathomable, one partner completely unaware of the trauma and crime hidden by the other. As the years passed, Joanne managed to keep her secret locked away, building a life that outwardly seemed normal. But beneath the surface, the truth waited, and as with all buried secrets, it was only a matter of time before it was unearthed. The question remains, was she ever truly at peace, or did the weight of her past ultimately lead her to confess after 25 years? After 25 years of silence, Joanne Sharkey finally admitted to the crime that had remained hidden for decades. But what led her to confess after so long? Was it guilt that became too overwhelming, or did an external event force her to reveal the truth? Reports indicate that Joanne eventually disclosed her dark secret, though the exact trigger for her confession remains unclear. Some speculate that as time passed, the weight of her actions became unbearable, especially as she continued to live a life where she was a mother to one child while having taken the life of another. Others believe that personal circumstances, perhaps a breakdown in her relationships or a renewed police interest in the case, may have pushed her to come clean. Regardless of her motivation, her admission sent shockwaves through her family and community. Friends and loved ones who had known her for years were left in disbelief. How had she managed to keep such a horrific secret? What had changed after all this time to make her finally speak out? Once Joanne confessed, the legal system swiftly took action. Authorities arrested her and charged her with the murder of her newborn son. Given the amount of time that had passed, prosecutors had to determine how best to proceed with the case, especially since the crime had occurred so long ago and much of the physical evidence was decades old. Despite the time gap, the nature of the crime was severe, and her confession played a crucial role in the charges against her. The court process began with her formal arrest and subsequent legal proceedings, during which she had to face the consequences of her actions. Her confession not only brought long-awaited justice for baby Callum, the infant she had killed, but it also forced those around her to re-evaluate everything they thought they knew about her. The community that once saw her as an ordinary woman now had to come to terms with the fact that she had lived with an unthinkable crime in silence for over 2 decades. Joanne Sharkey's trial became a focal point for public debate, as it raised complex questions about mental health, justice, and accountability. During the court proceedings, the prosecution laid out the chilling details of the crime: how Joanne secretly gave birth, suffocated her newborn son, and disposed of the body in a nearby woodland. The court heard emotional testimonies from those closest to her, including her husband and firstborn son, both of whom had unknowingly lived alongside this buried secret for decades. Her husband, who had been unaware of the pregnancy due to his opposite work schedule, expressed shock and disbelief at the revelation. The most emotionally charged moment came when their firstborn son, now an adult, took the stand. Having grown up without knowledge of his lost sibling, he struggled with the revelation that his mother had taken the life of his baby brother before he had a chance to know him. The court also reviewed evidence from forensic experts, detailing how baby Callum's remains had been discovered, and law enforcement officials discussed how the case had remained unsolved for years before Joanne's confession. The prosecution focused on the gravity of Joanne's crime, emphasizing that she had not acted in self-defense or under immediate threat but had consciously hidden her pregnancy, committed murder, and kept it secret for over 25 years. They argued that her long silence reflected a deliberate cover-up rather than a moment of temporary distress. The state pushed for a strong sentence to serve as justice for baby Callum and to deter similar cases in the future. However, the defense painted a different picture. Joanne's legal team argued that she had been suffering from severe postnatal depression at the time, which impaired her ability to make rational decisions. They called upon psychological experts who testified that untreated postpartum mental health struggles could lead to tragic and irrational actions. The defense pleaded for leniency, arguing that Joanne had lived with the guilt of her actions for decades and had voluntarily come forward, proving her deep remorse. The court had to weigh these arguments carefully. Was Joanne a cold and calculating individual who had gotten away with murder for decades? Or was she a woman who, overwhelmed by postpartum depression and fear, had made a devastating mistake and suffered in silence ever since? As the trial progressed, the case became not only about Joanne's fate but also about broader discussions on mental health, infanticide laws, and the criminal justice system's treatment of postpartum disorders. The final verdict would determine whether she would be treated as a criminal deserving of punishment or a troubled woman in need of understanding and psychological support. After hearing extensive arguments from both the prosecution and defense, the court reached its final decision. Joanne Sharkey was found guilty of murdering her newborn son, baby Callum, in 1998. However, the sentencing process took into account several mitigating factors, including her mental state at the time of the crime and the fact that she voluntarily confessed after 25 years of secrecy. The judge acknowledged the severity of her actions but also recognized the role of untreated postnatal depression in her decision-making. Instead of handing down the maximum possible sentence for murder, the court imposed a reduced prison term with considerations for psychological rehabilitation. Some speculated that if Joanne had never confessed, she might have lived out her life without facing legal consequences. The verdict sparked mixed reactions from different groups. Family response: Joanne's husband and firstborn son were visibly emotional in court. While her husband expressed deep sadness over the case, he also noted that the Joanne he knew was not a monster but a woman who had been trapped in fear and guilt. Their son, who had learned of his lost sibling only recently, struggled to process the reality of what his mother had done. Community and friends. Many of Joanne's acquaintances, who had seen her as a caring wife and mother, were shocked and divided by the ruling. Some believed that justice had been served, while others felt sympathy for her, arguing that she had already endured a life sentence of guilt. Public and media reactions. The case gained widespread attention, with discussions surrounding mental health, maternal support systems, and justice for newborn victims. Some legal analysts debated whether Joanne's confession should have warranted a lighter sentence or a harsher one, given the long period she had concealed the truth. Others pointed out the lack of mental health resources for struggling mothers and argued that this tragedy could have been prevented with better support. The sentencing concluded a 25-year-old mystery but left lingering questions about justice, morality, and the long-term effects of untreated psychological trauma. While Joanne now had to face the consequences of her actions, the case also served as a sobering reminder of the hidden struggles some individuals carry for a lifetime. One of the most significant aspects of Joanne Sharkey's case is the role that postnatal depression may have played in her decision to conceal her pregnancy and ultimately kill her newborn. Postnatal depression is a severe mental health condition that can lead to irrational fear, extreme anxiety, and even psychosis in some cases. Many experts believe that, had Joanne received proper medical and psychological intervention, the tragic crime could have been prevented. This case highlights the urgent need for mental health awareness when it comes to maternal care. Many mothers suffering from postnatal depression do not seek help due to feelings of shame, guilt, or fear of judgment. In Joanne's case, the pressure of keeping up appearances, combined with a lack of emotional support, pushed her into making a devastating and irreversible decision. It raises critical questions. How many mothers are silently battling mental health struggles without access to proper care? What systems can be put in place to provide early intervention before a mother reaches a breaking point? How can society destigmatize discussions about postnatal depression so that struggling mothers feel safe enough to seek help? This tragedy serves as a call to action for better awareness, screening, and support systems to prevent similar incidents from happening in the future. Joanne's case also brings attention to the intense societal pressures surrounding motherhood. Society often expects mothers to be naturally nurturing, loving, and excited about having children. However, this expectation ignores the reality that many women experience fear, uncertainty, and mental health challenges before and after childbirth. In Joanne's case, the pressure to be the perfect mother may have contributed to her inability to ask for help. She likely feared judgment from family and friends if they discovered she had an unplanned or unwanted pregnancy, shame and social isolation for not feeling the expected joy of motherhood, failure as a woman, since society often equates a woman's worth with her ability to bear and raise children. This highlights a major issue. Women who struggle with motherhood, whether due to financial instability, mental health, or personal circumstances, often feel they have no safe space to voice their concerns. Instead of seeking help, they may choose secrecy, self-isolation, or even dangerous solutions that lead to tragic consequences. Joanne's story underscores the need for greater societal acceptance and support for women facing pregnancy-related challenges. By fostering a culture where women feel safe discussing their struggles, we can work toward a world where cases like this become a cautionary tale of the past, rather than a recurring tragedy. The case of Joanne Sharkey is a tragic example of how personal despair, societal pressures, and untreated mental health struggles can culminate in devastating consequences. For 25 years, she lived with the weight of an unspeakable secret, a crime that was not driven by malice but by overwhelming distress, fear, and isolation. Her actions, while undeniably horrific, raise important questions about how mental health issues, especially postnatal depression, can push individuals to extreme decisions. This story forces us to confront the harsh reality of unaddressed psychological turmoil and the dire consequences when individuals feel they have no one to turn to. It reminds us that behind many crimes lies a deeper, more complex struggle, one that could have been prevented with the right intervention. Joanne's case underscores the urgent need for open conversations about maternal mental health, the pressures of motherhood, and the importance of accessible support systems. Mental health awareness should be prioritized, particularly for new and expectant mothers, so that struggles like postnatal depression are identified and treated early. Open communication and safe spaces should be encouraged, so women don't feel trapped in silence when dealing with unwanted pregnancies, postpartum struggles, or personal crises. Stronger community support systems can prevent individuals from feeling so isolated that they believe their only option is a desperate and irreversible act. Had Joanne received the support she needed, this tragedy might have been avoided. This case serves as a powerful lesson that we must break the stigma around seeking help before struggles turn into irreversible actions. This case serves as a somber reminder that unaddressed personal struggles can lead to devastating outcomes. It's imperative to seek help and support before despair turns into irreversible actions. No one should feel so alone that they believe there's no other way out. If you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out. There is always help available. The discussion doesn't end here. Let's continue the conversation about mental health, maternal struggles, and the importance of seeking help before it's too late. Small Blue Diamond, what are your thoughts on this case? Do you believe Joanne's actions were purely criminal, or do you think mental health played a significant role? Let us know in the comments. Small Blue Diamond, if you found this deep dive insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Your support helps raise awareness about these critical issues and ensures that important conversations reach more people. Bell turn on notifications so you never miss a new episode of our real-life crime investigations. Stay aware, stay informed, and most importantly, stay compassionate.